Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamuditaye Nashtaprayeshu Vadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttam Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. So continuing with the discussion on Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, chapter 3, text 29 onwards. Text 29. Janma guhyam bhagavato ya etat prayato naraha sayam pratri grinan bhaktya dukkha gramad vimuchyate. Whoever carefully recites the mysterious appearances of the Lord with devotion in the morning and in the evening gets relief from all miseries of life. So in the purport, Prabhupada says, in the Bhagavad Gita, the personality of Godhead has declared that anyone who knows the principles of the transcendental birth and activities of the Lord will go back to Godhead after being relieved from this material tabernacle. So Krishna says in Gita, Janma karma chami divyam evam yaveti tatvata tyakta deham punarjanma naiti mameti so Arjuna. Means one who knows the transcendental nature of my birth and my activities, one who knows that in truth, he does not have to take birth again in this material world. So he goes back to the spiritual world. So same thing here. And actually, I had discussed earlier also, Bhaktivinoda Thakur in his book Shiksha, Chaitanya Shikshamrita, he says the demon killing pastimes of Krishna, the demons that he killed in Vrindavan, they all represent one or the other anartha in our heart. So when we listen to those pastimes with lots of faith and devotion, then the anarthas corresponding to those demons, they get removed from our heart. So Krishna in the form of his pastimes, Krishna in the form of his name, he enters a heart and he kills that demon, the anartha representing that demon, also in the heart. So this is also proved here. So one who carefully recites, carefully means not just with full grammatical, punctual, everything, but means with full faith, with the heart in there, with devotion. Then he gets relieved from all the miseries of life. So simply knowing factually the mysterious way of Lord's incarnation in this material world can liberate one from material bondage. Therefore, the birth and activities of the Lord, as manifested by Him for the welfare of the people in general, are not ordinary. So Krishna takes birth and we recite that with faith and devotion, and we get free from the cycle of birth and death. That is the beauty of Krishna consciousness. It is advised, therefore, that one who simply recites this chapter of Bhagavatam describing the appearance of the Lord in different incarnations in sincerity and devotion can have insight into the birth and activities of the Lord. The very word vimukti or liberation indicates that the Lord's birth and activities are all transcendental. Otherwise, simply by reciting them, one could not attain liberation. So attaining liberation is so easy if we just recite his pastimes every day. That's all. For liberation, all these yogis and sadhus have to go to Himalayas and just sit down in meditation for hundreds of thousands of years. And then chances are they would attain liberation. But Krishna is very merciful. So he gives liberation so freely. They are therefore mysterious, and those who do not follow the prescribed regulations of devotional service are not entitled to enter into the mysteries of his birth and activities. Well, the secret behind reciting the birth and activities of the Lord with sincerity, with devotion, is that one who knows the activities, or one who starts reading and he starts appreciating the activities and birth of the Lord, he cannot remain without serving him. He will end up serving him. So one who ends up serving Krishna and chanting his name, that's also a service, and reciting his pastimes, that's also service, Shravan and Kirtan, then he will not remain in the material world for too long. That's the whole idea. So text 30, Etad rupam bhagavato hiyarupasya chidatmana maya gunair virachitam mahad adir bhiratmani. The conception of the Virat, universal form of the Lord, as appearing in the material world is imaginary. So here also Krishna, Sud Goswami himself is saying, this conception of Virat form is imaginary. It is to enable the less intelligent and neophytes to adjust to the idea of the Lord's having form. But factually, the Lord has no material form. He has all spiritual form, he has no material form. The conception of the Lord known as the Vishwaroop or Virat Roop is particularly not mentioned along with the various incarnations of the Lord because all of the incarnations of the Lord mentioned above are transcendental and there is not a tinge of materialism in their bodies. There is no difference between the body and the self as in the case of a conditioned soul. The Virat Roop is conceived for those who are just neophyte worshippers. For them, the material Virat Roop is presented and it will be explained in the second canto. In the Virat Roop, the material manifestations of different planets have been conceived as his legs, hands, etc. Actually, all such descriptions are for the neophytes. The neophyte cannot conceive of anything beyond matter. So neophytes mean the new people, newcomer, or having just started to have faith in Krishna. In Prabhupada writing, they cannot conceive of anything beyond matter. Just like for us also, when we go to the temple, we see Radha Partharthi or Jagannath deity. But do we really see the Lord? Or we see the wooden form or the stone form? So we are all on the neophyte level actually. The material conception of the Lord is not counted in the list of his actual forms. As Paramatma or Super Soul, the Lord is within each and every material form, even within the atoms. But the outward material form is but an imagination, both for the Lord and for the living being. The present forms of the conditioned souls are also not factual. The conclusion is that the material conception of the body of the Lord as Virat is imaginary. Both the Lord and the living beings are living spirits and have original spiritual bodies. So we also have original spiritual body. Our body is covered by this material body that we see. And Krishna, this Virat Roop is an imaginary form. It doesn't really exist, but just to give the neophytes an idea of Krishna having a form, it's shown in that way. But Krishna's form is completely transcendental, completely spiritual. And when Krishna appears in the material world also, he has his own transcendental form. He does not take any material form. So when he appears, there's no difference between the soul and body of Krishna. There's no such thing as inside and outside of Krishna. Everything is same. For us, there's a difference. We have a material body covering the spirit soul. So there's a huge difference. But in the spiritual world, we also get a spiritual body, which right now is covered over by material body. But slowly, when we make progress in the path of yoga or bhakti, then the spiritual body starts growing within this material body. And when we are completely perfect, completely pure, completely qualified, then the spiritual body takes a full figure, full shape, and then we go back to the spiritual world because then we cannot live in the material world. Yatha navasi megho ghao renurva parthivo anile evam drishtare drishtatma aropitam bodhibhi. Clouds and dust are carried by the air. but less intelligent persons say that the sky is cloudy and the air is dirty. Similarly, they also implant material bodily conceptions on the spirit self. It is further confirmed herein that with our material eyes and senses, we cannot see the Lord, who is all spirit. We cannot even detect the spiritual spark which exists within the material body of the living being. We look to the outward covering of the body or subtle mind of the living being, but we cannot see the spiritual spark within the body. So we have to accept the living being's presence by the presence of his gross body. Similarly, those who want to see the Lord with their present material eyes or with material senses are advised to meditate on the gigantic external feature called the Virat Rupa. For instance, when a particular gentleman goes in his car, which can be seen very easily, we identify the car with the man within the car. When the president goes out in his particular car, we say there is the president. For the time being, we identify the car with the president. It's a nice example Prabhupada is giving. If the president or prime minister is going in the car, we don't see the prime minister or the president inside the car. We just see the car, and then we say, oh, here goes the prime minister, here goes the president. Similarly, less intelligent men who want to see God immediately without necessary qualification are shown first the gigantic material cosmos as the form of the Lord, although the Lord is within and without. So they are shown first the gigantic material cosmos. Just like when we go to the second canto, we'll see it is said in the Virat Rupa means the upper planetary systems are his upper body, the middle planetary system are like his waist and the middle part of his body, and the lower planetary systems are his legs. But they are not actually his legs, they're legs of the Virat Rupa. Virat Rupa is the universal form. This is how material form is depicted as, and it's basically to give us an idea that everything actually comes from the Lord and everything is resting on the Lord. Everything functions by the mercy of the Lord. Everything is maintained by the Lord. So everything is dependent on the Lord. Nothing is independent of the Lord. Although the bluish tint of the sky and the sky itself are different, we conceive of the color of the sky as blue, but that is a general conception for the layman only. So the sky, the color of the sky, when we look up in the sky, we say it is blue. But is the sky blue, really blue? No. Sky has no color. It just, well, so scientifically, as the light reflects and by the different reflection of light, when it comes to our eye, we see it as blue. But the sky is not blue. So similarly, this is just for us to understand, give us an idea what the sky looked like. We say it is blue. So similarly, when we see the material world, we conceive of everything is dependent on the Lord, everything is part of the body of the Lord, by understanding everything is situated on different parts of the universal form of the Lord, which actually is imaginary because the Lord has no material form. He has all spiritual form. Atha param yadvyaktam vyud gun brahmitam adrishta shrut vastutvatsa jivo yat punarbhava. Beyond this gross conception of form is another subtle conception of form, which is without formal shape and is unseen, unheard, and unmanifest. The living being has his form beyond this subtlety, otherwise he could not have repeated births. As a gross cosmic manifestation is conceived as the gigantic body of the Lord, so also there is a conception of his subtle form, which is simply realized without being seen, heard, or manifested. But in fact, all these gross or subtle conceptions of the body are in relation with the living beings. The living beings has a spiritual form beyond this gross material or subtle psychic existence. The gross body and psychic functions cease to act as soon as a living being leaves the visible gross body. So the conclusion is that the Lord is eternally existent in his transcendental form, which is neither gross nor subtle, like that of the living being. His body is never to be compared to the gross and subtle bodies of the living being. All such conceptions of the God's body are imaginary. The living being has his eternal spiritual form, which is conditioned only by his material contamination. So the living being, beyond this gross form, he also has a subtle form. Subtle body is made of, we call it MBA, mind, man, buddhi, ahankar, mind, intelligence, false ego. So if somebody has an MBA degree, then he can understand what is subtle body. Then he gets this, not just MBA, I mean, any engineering degree also works like that. He gets this cloud over his head. I am MBA or I am BTech or I am MTech. But MBA because it can translate into man, buddhi, ahankar. So subtle body is made of mind, intelligence, false ego. That is a subtle body. So, but that is also material. Even mind, intelligence, false ego, that's also material. It's not spiritual. And when the soul when the soul is ready to go back to the spiritual world, then it leaves both the material gross body and the subtle body here and goes back. Although when it repeatedly takes birth, when the soul leaves one body and goes to another body, it takes the subtle body with it. So the subtle body of mind, intelligence, false ego goes with the soul from one body to another, to another, to another. And also, along with the subtle body goes the Paramatma. That's why when many times when at night when we see the dreams, so basically dreams are what? Dreams are when we are in this body, then we capture so many pictures every day. We see so many things, and all these pictures are kept in the mind. So the same mind is coming from previous lives. So in the dreams, when we see so many things, we think, oh, I have never seen this before. I have never been to this place before, at least in this lifetime. But the thing is, we have been to those places earlier. So that's why those pictures are captured in the mind. And sometimes some slideshow of some life, it starts working, it gets activated. And that's why these like people who do past life regression, they basically work on the mind, because mind has a storehouse of everything that has happened in the past. But Krishna's mercy, we forget in this lifetime what we did in the previous lifetimes, how we lived, how we died, what nonsense activities we did, whatever. Because if we remember that, then we cannot perform our functions in this lifetime. So Krishna makes us forget those. But the data is kept in the mind. So those who can really go into past life regression, we can go and we can analyze that data. But then the question is, what we will gain by analyzing that data. It's so simple to understand that if somebody has, suppose has dengue fever, then yes, he was bitten by a mosquito. Now, what is the point in finding out when was I bitten by that mosquito? What was I doing? Where was I bitten? Okay, you have dengue, means you were bitten, and now take care of the dengue fever. Hardly matters which mosquito, where, when, how he bit you. So similarly, like people who want to go through past life regression, sometimes they have so many situations in this lifetime that they cannot get over it. Some things are happening, some incidents are happening, some problems are there. They cannot understand, what did I do wrong? Why I'm suffering? So let me go in that past life and try to figure out. Well, yeah, there's a way one can, but then what is the point? Just try to work out why I'm suffering is fine, and now let's figure out how to reduce this suffering. That is the best way. But some people, they get kind of carried away in this past life regression. But it is there because everything is stored in the mind. It's there in one of the folders in the mind, and we just have to open that folder. So should I stop here or should I take another verse? We can take
one more verse, Prabhu. One more verse.
One more verse. Okay.
Yes, we have about 7 minutes.
Yatre me sadasad-rupe prati-siddhe swasamvidha avidyayatmani krite iti tad-brahm darshanam. Whenever a person experiences by self-realization that both the gross and subtle bodies have nothing to do with the pure self, at that time he sees himself as well as the Lord. So this is the way of seeing the Lord. When we understand that I have nothing to do with this body, the gross and subtle body has nothing to do with the pure self. I mean, nothing to do means this body has been given to the spirit soul inside it for a reason. For some karmas of that spirit soul, we are given this particular body. We were born in this particular family. We got this particular gender. We got whatever diseases we have in the body because of our past karmas. But the soul is still separate from the body. It is very much understood, easy to understand actually. Even if we just look at our body, we are all looking at the camera on our mobile phones or whatever computer. Is it? I mean, do you think the eyes are seeing, looking at the camera, or there is something within the body who's looking through the eyes at the screen of the mobile phone? So actually, the eyes don't see anything. It's something, somebody is behind the eyes to look through the eyes. Eyes are just an instrument. Just like, for example, when we used to go to biology lab in our 8th, 9th, 10th grade, so we used to see this petri dish with some fungus or bacteria or algae through the microscope. So microscope was not looking at this fungus or bacteria or algae. We were looking through the microscope. So microscope was just an instrument. So similarly, the eyes are just an instrument because in the dead body, the eyes are there, but they don't see anything. In the dead body, ears are there, but they don't hear anything because the person who's hearing the active principle, which is hearing, is gone, which is called soul. So even if some dead body is there, ears are there, organs are there, everything is there, but since the soul is gone, those organs are useless. No matter how much you yell or you put down the recording of wonderful chanting by Subbu Prabhu of chapter 12 or chapter 15 of Bhagavad Gita, that person will not get up or do anything because soul is gone. The ears are there. So similar, so we have to understand we are not this body. Basically, this is the first, most primary teaching of Bhagavad Gita. That's how we start everything. So this is what Prabhupada is writing in the purport. The difference between self-realization and material illusion is to know that the temporary or illusory impositions of material body in the shape of gross and subtle bodies are superficial coverings of the self. They're just a superficial coverings, nothing else. The covering takes place due to ignorance. Such coverings are never effective in the person of the personality of Godhead, because Krishna is never under any ignorance. Of course, the best thing is to use this covering. Of course, the covering is also made of energy of the Lord, to use this covering in achieving God or in the service of the Lord. So the soul gets to its prime destination. Self-realization means becoming indifferent to the needs of the gross and subtle bodies and becoming serious about the activities of the self. So indifferent to the needs doesn't mean we don't work on the needs of the gross and subtle body. If the bodies need nice shelter, nice food, nice clothing, we have to provide. We have to work on it, but not just like Rupa Goswami says in this book, Nectar of Instruction, Atyahara Prayasascha. Atyahara means overeating and over endeavoring for material gains is this that takes us away from spiritual progress. The perfect stage of self-realization is attained not by artificial means, but under the lotus feet of the Lord, who is always transcendental. In the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord says that He is present in everyone's heart, and from Him only all knowledge, remembrance, or forgetfulness take place. When the living being desires to be an enjoyer of the material energy, the Lord covers the living being in the mystery of forgetfulness, and thus the living being misinterprets the gross body and subtle mind to be his own self. And by the culture of transcendental knowledge, when the living being prays to the Lord for deliverance from the clutches of forgetfulness, the Lord, by His causeless mercy, removes the living being's illusory curtain, and thus he realizes his own self. So that's all it is. It depends on our desire. How strong our desire is, Krishna as Paramatma is sitting in our heart, He is always ready to help. So if our desire is to be more self-realized, make advancement in spiritual life, Krishna will definitely help. Krishna is helping everybody. And if our desire is to forget Him, He is there to help us in that way also. It's our depends on our desire. So I'll stop here, see anybody has any questions or comments.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Mata.
Prabhuji, I have a query. Two things you have just explained to us.
Okay.
We see lot many pictures, lot many places, and then we think that no, we have never been there. How can we see that? But somehow in our maybe past previous births, we must have been there. That is why we are seeing. And then on the other hand, you're saying that this soul has nothing to do with the body. So if the soul leaves the body, this body becomes, dead. So our eyes doesn't work. Obviously our mind will also stop working. Then I understand that when a soul transfers from one body to another body, that soul has past karmas, past good or bad karmas account. But then how can a memory which is stored in that previous body is getting transferred into the another body? I mean, because the soul is getting a fresh body, fresh mind, and then the memory, how is getting transferred?
No, not the fresh mind. This subtle body of mind, intelligence, false ego, goes with the soul from one body to another. The gross body remains here, gross body that we see.
Okay.
The subtle body goes with the soul.
Okay. So that means all the account of karmas, the memories, and and the anarthas, or even the qualities, whatever we have, it goes to another body with
Yeah,
the soul.
and the sanskaras and any
Okay.
experiences that we have experienced in the past lives, emotions.
Oh,
Sometimes we
okay. Okay.
see a little child is very angry. He's always
Yeah.
angry. So where is this sanskar of anger coming from? It's from the previous lives.
Okay. 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 Okay.
So many things go with from one body to another. Yes, Rajiv Prabhuji, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Prabhuji, you touch base on desire and according to desire, one can get the material thing or the bhakti, spiritual thing. But it has a direct correlation with karmas also. No? I might be desiring either of the lot of things, but if my karmas are not to that level, I may not be getting what I desire.
Yeah, true, true. What we get is what we deserve. You can desire anything, but karmas guide us to how much we deserve. But
Yeah.
in case of getting Krishna's mercy, that is different thing. Because if we desire that Krishna, I want you, then he can make arrangements. But the desire has to be sincere.
Understand. Yeah. Thanks, Prabhuji.
Thank you, brother. Any other question or comment? So I guess we can stop here.
Prabhuji, 1 minute.
I'll stop the recording, then we can discuss.
Yeah.
Okay. So let me stop the recording.